Oh, what was it? It was,
You were like, that's an old time. That's an old word for sure.
oh man, because I've been using that word. Oh, what was it?
Chicken gizzards.
I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember the word.
I have to go back and look. Oh, because I've been using it. My wife's been
know.
making fun of me like crazy because I've been
Yeah.
using a lot. The old word.
Yeah.
All right, we should be good. It reconnected, so we should be good.
My computer, I haven't had it open. You hear it?
Somebody trying to get a hold of you.
It's catching up all my texts. It's dinging them in. Look at that. And you know what it is?
What is it?
It's the games of the. we were sitting there we were sitting there through Christmas playing games, Game Pigeon. So it's darts and basketball and
Pigeon.
pool. Game.
That's awesome.
All right. How do I turn my notifications off? Because my phone rang the last time and all kind of stuff. How do I do that? Oh my God. Wait a minute. Let's turn this off. Oh no! You know what happened? When I turn my phone off, their volume output on my computer to nothing. Oh, Nipsey Russell. Oh, Nipsey.
Oh, Nipsey Russell.
Here we go. Here's what it was. Theater mode.
Oh, there you go.
Theater mode turns on silent mode and keeps the screen dark until you tap the screen or press the digital crown side button. Also changes walkie-talkie status to unavailable. Okay.
All right. All right. I got to go and do the episode 1, 2, 3.
Let's go. I feel good about this.
Grammarly's wanting to change a few things, so I had to. I love Grammarly.
We were talking about how Grammarly's actually better than like that, the chat bot, QPT or whatever that thing's called.
The AI stuff.
Yeah. That just does it for you. It doesn't even have any brain power.
Right.
At least Grammarly makes you do it and then turns around and says, you might want to change this.
Right. That's what I like is like, I don't have to change it if I don't want to. No, I want to say it like that. I want to be grammatically incorrect. Leave me alone.
I said it how I wanted to say it, Grammarly. You know, hey, you know what's funny is in It's a Wonderful Life. Isn't it interesting that when he goes back with Clarence and he goes to Martini's, but it's actually Nick's? And when he goes back, Nick is like, listen, buddy, I don't know who you are, and I don't know why you keep calling me Nick, but you better watch out. It's funny how like just because George hasn't been born, Nick actually turns into a mafia guy.
We got a couple pixies here. Hey, look, I'm handing out wings tonight.
Ding, ding, ding on the cash register.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on It's a Wonderful Life, bro.
Oh man,
I got that magazine, and it is amazing.
The Wonderful Life magazine.
Yeah. Do you know? Okay, ready for a fun fact?
This is information I don't know. I will assure you.
Information you don't know. So, back in the day, when they would do snow for movies, they would use cornflakes. That's how they would make it look like snow. It'd be cornflakes, and
really
they'd put powder on it, whatever. And so, problem was, you would walk on it and it would crunch. It would crunch. So they'd have to dub the sound over, right? So Frank Capra said, "No, we're not doing that." So they took the stuff they use for fire extinguishers.
No way.
And ran this massive amount of stuff through these hoses and had these gigantic fans. And so when they recorded that scene, it was like 97 degrees outside. The famous scene where he's running through the truck. Merry Christmas, you old savings and loan. You know that.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, Bedford Falls.
You old movie house. And so, so it's running through this big hose, and these gigantic fans are blowing that snow out. Isn't that awesome?
Hilarious.
They won like a lot of awards for special effects for It's a Wonderful Life. So there you go. As your fun fact for It's a Wonderful Life.
There we go. If anybody would have fun facts for It's a Wonderful Life, it would be you.
I am the It's a Wonderful Life expert.
Aficionado.
Absolutely.
Aficionado.
As the great John Hummel declares, he said it, so it's got to be true. Best film ever. The only thing that would have made it better is if Nipsey Russell would have been in it.
Could you imagine? A cameo by Nipsey Russell.
Bro, God's honest truth, I'm driving down the road, and all of a sudden I just started thinking about Nipsey Russell. I snorted in the microphone.
That's awesome. The Globetrotter, Nipsey Russell. Well, what's funny was I got to talking to. I was telling Stephanie we were driving down the road, and I told her, I said, wouldn't that be funny? Like, wouldn't that be funny to have like Nipsey Russell? He if he had ever appeared on the Globetrotters or whatever. But then, well, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say
Filter kicked in.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, he'd have been. Never mind. Anyway, we better just move on. Oh man. All right, we ready to rock and roll, bro?
Let's do this.
We're a little behind today, but it's coming off of Christmas. And
hey, I wonder if hold on. I wonder if in my brain, for some reason, Nipsey Russell, the basketball piece was like Bill Russell. Like, I wonder if that was what kind of jogged a little something. And I'm like, but like Nipsey Russell, and it sounds like a Globetrotter name. It totally sounds like a Globetrotter name.
It does. I mean, you can't get a better backcourt than Curly Neal and Nipsey Russell.
Oh, and the Globetrotters do kind of, it is kind of a comedic type thing.
Yeah.
Whatever. Nipsey Russell, Bill Cosby. Like if you could
Globetrotters.
Right? And
Chris Rock.
And Fat Albert. Remember they did fill in the lane. Fill in the lane. And of course Bill Cosby did the voice of Fat Albert.
All of them. He did them all.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did all the voices. And
Abadoba.
That Mushmouth. Was it Mushmouth? Is that what he called
his name? Mushmouth.
Yeah. What are you doing, Mushmouth? Where did you leave your keys?
Hey, one of the great cartoon moments of all times was when the Brown Hornet came on.
Mm-hmm.
Fat Albert. Hey, the Brown Hornet. Yeah. They all start clapping and going crazy.
They did. Well, but they in their intro, they're playing basketball.
Yeah.
In the intro. So, I mean, so Bill Cosby, the cast from Fat Albert, Nipsey Russell, all on a special edition Scooby-Doo. Wouldn't it be awesome?
Chris Rock.
Yep. That would be so awesome.
That'd be so good. That'd be so awesome. So yeah. All right. Here we go. You ready to rock and roll?
Yeah.
Appreciate everybody jumping on here. So we'll get rolling, get started today. Keep an eye on the time. I always forget what time we start because we get rolling on these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. I forget like when the actual thing starts.
Exactly.
Actually, I had somebody tell me the other day, they're like, they were watching. They're like, I couldn't tell when it started, when it didn't start. I'm like, yeah, I know. Welcome to our world. So
yeah, exactly.
All right, here we go. You ready? We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mobilized Church Podcast. This is Chris Dillingham alongside my big brother Ken Dillingham Jr. the third on this crispy, cool Tuesday morning here after Christmas. Did you have a good Christmas, bro? We haven't even really hardly talked.
You know what? It's been crazy, hasn't it?
It's been crazy, man. We headed down to the old stomping grounds in Illinois, and we headed out, bro. We headed out on your birthday.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, your
Yeah.
birthday. We went out
Friday,
Friday,
the Snowmageddon.
Snowmageddon, and we had some dangerous highways, bro. Holy cow, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Oh my goodness gracious,
Come
it
on.
was a mess. So we white knuckled it there, and then came home last night. Was doing great, and guess where we got hit again?
Tell me.
Stinking dadgum Fort Wayne.
Fort Stinking Wayne.
It
What is the
was
deal?
slick, as they like to say. It was so stinking slick, man. It was unbelievable. So I'm glad to be home. I hate driving in that weather, but we had a great Christmas. You have a good Christmas?
I actually had a fabulous Christmas. Spent just that we didn't get to hang with you guys. That's the only downside, but it was good
I
otherwise.
know and in hindsight, we probably could have worked it out if we'd have only known, right? With the
For real
cancellations and all that kind of stuff. Crazy weather, bro. It hit. I don't know what it hit there, but I think here it was like -40 or close to -40 with the wind chill factor.
I don't know that we got past 35 here, -35. I think it was actual was like -11 one night. So as a record, my birthday, it was on my birthday. It was an all-time low.
Goodness gracious.
On my birthday.
That's crazy.
We had an all-time low.
Was that an Alec? Was that a metaphor or what?
Well, it's a good follow-up to our podcast that Tuesday.
For real.
And then
for real, man.
Hey, can I tell you something crazy? And I probably shouldn't say this because I didn't really look it up a whole lot. And so just give me some grace because I don't even know this. No, I don't know the guy. So I went to look up Nipsey Russell after last week.
Yeah.
Those of you that don't know what we're talking about, you need to go back to last week's episode. And so I searched Nipsey. I put in Nipsey, and the first thing that comes up is a rapper by the name of Nipsey Hussle.
Nipsey Hussle.
So Nipsey Hussle beat out Nipsey Russell in the Google search. What's the deal?
Nipsey Russell's old as dirt, man. I mean, he's that was way back in the day. So I remember somebody mentioned, I think he was on. He used to always be on, what was it, like the $25,000 pyramid or something like that with Dick Clark and Hollywood Squares.
He was on. I was reading afterwards. I'm like, man, it kind of just spawned a little thought of like, yeah, I know Nipsey Russell. What all did he? He was like on American Bandstand. He got his start in like a rock and roll review magazine in Atlanta.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Look at that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I think he's born in 1918. Is that weird?
That's crazy, man.
No, was it 1918, 1920? No, it wasn't that early. It was like 1928 or something. It doesn't matter anyway.
Something like that. Yeah. So, man, well, we'll see if we can.
He was born in 1918, bro. He died in 2005.
You shouldn't doubt yourself. That steel trap brain you got. Shouldn't doubt that. Well, we'll see if we can conjure up some obscure 1970s star or something. Go back to remember that show Battle of the Network Stars?
Oh yeah.
Like Gabe Kaplan from Welcome Back, Kotter.
Bro, the original
they do Tug of War and
the only reason you didn't see his shorty shorts was because of his afro. It's a great diversion. The afro is a wonderful diversion.
Oh my goodness, man. That's horrible. That's horrible. So I got some pictures, bro. Dad and Debbie hooked me up with some pictures. I need to share some of them with you. Hey, and let's just say this. 70s, late 70s, early 80s. Man, whoever was designing and doing the style, the fashion of the day, bro. The Dillingham shorty short game was strong, bro.
It was hilarious. It was so
wrong. It was horrible.
It was so terrible. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna tell you what I thought because I can't say that out loud. But doggone, man. I'm like, like a white double steel belt with those jeans, awesome. The cutoff jean shorts. I'm like, you couldn't cut them off mid thigh. I mean, you had to give me some daggone Daisy Dukes.
Well, and we were looking at these pictures.
I didn't do that.
Right, you didn't. That wasn't your
that
choice.
age. Yeah.
Well, I was looking at all of my pictures, and I couldn't hardly find any pictures that I either didn't have a cutoff or a tank top on.
I know.
So sun's out, guns out, baby.
When I think of you in the earliest days, I always think of you with a numbered tank top.
Always. I've got a picture of it. It's a white one with I think it was number 12 on it, maybe, or something like that, or something. Yeah. So I would post pictures of you, but unfortunately, I can't what the girls because said? I'm embarrassed. I'll be embarrassed with you.
I know. The girls looked at that one picture when the mullet perm was in.
Dude, listen. Hey, can I just tell people listening right now? My man, Ken Dillingham Jr. III, I don't know what grade that was.
I think it was like fifth or sixth or something.
My man had a afro mullet perm combo going on. I don't know what was happening with that, but it was amazing, bro.
The girls said they for whatever reason they had been looking for Bee Gees singing Christmas. Bee Gees Christmas. Like, I don't even, the 70s thing must be in the air. Like, we must be vibing it strong. Right. And so my girls, I've got a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old still at home, and they were looking for Bee Gees Christmas. And so apparently when I said, hey guys, look at this hairdo from my Christmas pictures, not Christmas, school pictures. And they fell over backwards. And when they came to laughing.
Right.
And then they said, "That's Andy Gibb. That's the Andy Gibb hairstyle." They're like
staying alive, baby.
Like wah, wah.
Got the wave going on. That was beautiful, man. And I do big time shout out to Ken Dillingham Sr. III, who in the 70s he had a killer stash, bro.
And it was not a crust stash. It was like, you know what I'm saying? It was.
He had a killer stash, dude. He looked awesome. He had a little like Tom Selleck. He had like kind of the Tom Selleck stash at one point.
Yeah.
So it was pretty glorious. So yeah, we had a good time going through all of that stuff. So, all right. Well, we've reminisced, and we could do this all day. But we do have a reason for being here, and we of course thankful for everybody that is jumping on and listening. This is the Mobilized Church podcast. You're not in the wrong spot. This is just what we do.
This is how we get. Hey, this is how we get our big numbers, our big audience numbers.
Ran into an old friend, Dennis and Sandy Flick, yesterday at Monocle's in Centralia, Illinois. And he said he listens to and checks us out on the podcast. And he said, I love the beginning part, kind of just the rapport, the back and forth. So man, we just have fun.
That's how we grow. That's how we grow, dude. People think we grow our audience with our massively stellar content.
Yes,
but our content, as good as it is actually second to our impromptu banter.
Absolutely. Appreciate everybody that's listening. And bro, episode today is episode number 123, number 123. And this is the last episode of 22. Can you believe that? It's crazy, man.
It is crazy.
So we appreciate everybody that's made this a phenomenal year. And we've just had some great interaction, great conversations, great discussions. So do us a favor, go ahead and hit that share button and turn on notifications. People turn on notifications for Facebook Live so you can jump on and be a part of the conversation live. And we certainly appreciate that. So today we do have a conversation, and I'll kind of be like the setter in volleyball, right? I'll be the setter and just let you just hammer the thing home. Okay.
Come on, let's go.
So this is one of my favorite times of the year. My wife tells me I'm a Scrooge, that I'm kind of a Grinch when it comes to Christmas. I'm not a huge Christmas guy. It's not, I don't know. It's great. It's fine, whatever. But I'm not a Christmas music guy, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, I love the new year.
Huh.
Bro, I love the new year.
That's awesome.
I love.
This is a great topic then.
Right. I love the opportunity for like refocus, just kind of like you just kind of get caught up over time. You kind of get caught up in life, whatever. So I love the opportunity for a reset. And so today, what we want to talk about as we kind of put a bow on 22 and look forward to 23. The reality is not much really changes in the big
Yeah,
scheme of things. It's just another day, another flipping
really
of the
true.
calendar and whatever, right? But it
Yeah,
mentally it gives us an opportunity to
yeah.
kind of do that flip or whatever. And so, one of the good exercises is to kind of look back at, things that went well, things we focused on, things that we accomplished in the year, learning lessons. Right, we never lose. We either win or learn. Things we've learned over the last year, and then kind of look forward. This is a big part of the process for churches, individuals, people, organizations do this, and kind of set out the strategy for the next year. So today, what we
Mm,
want to talk about is, you know, as people are going through this process, whether you're a church, individual, whatever, how does living on mission, being a disciple maker, uh, let me actually, before being a disciple maker, being a disciple, how does all of that affect that process? Kind of how do we evaluate those things? What does our scorecard look like? All that kind of stuff. So today we want to just kind of set that out, the metrics of a multiplication movement.
mhm.
What How do we evaluate effectiveness? How do we plan and strategize going into the next year? How does all of that affect that? So why don't you just get us set up in the conversation today, Ken?
That's awesome. Yeah, what's interesting is I think the beauty of it's funny you're talking about not being a big, you like Christmas and whatever for the family and that piece of it. And as a purist, you're a purist, bro. You are a purist, and so Christmas starts moving towards just pure maniacal materialism, and just the purist in you is like, you
Word.
know what, chunk it.
Chunk it all.
However, it is interesting that I was thinking while you were talking about liking the new year, that it's a beautiful blessing that God has given us, that we don't have this unending continuum of life. It was God's plan that
Yeah.
said in the beginning, he says the evening and the morning were the first day.
Man, that's
And
so
so that
good. I like that.
so God gave like the reset of days, and then he had a Sabbath and said, and then there's going to be a reset on the week. And then they had like in the Levitical system of worship, they had the resets of the new moons and all of those things. And then the yearly reset. And so it's interesting. I think the Bible said he makes all things new, and the Bible said his mercy is new every morning. And so it's interesting that God gives us this blessing of a reset that says, you know what, what you did yesterday can influence and inform today, but it doesn't have to control it.
Right.
And so I think that's the beauty, like you said, it really not a whole lot, there's nothing where like the last year's wadded up and it's thrown away, never to be seen again. There's a lot of things that happen that continue to inform who we are, but yet it gives us the ability to go into the new year with some new thinking and some planning and whatever. So, I think today, as we look through this topic, one of the things, as you just mentioned, about in a disciple making movement, the metrics, the scorecard, the evaluation, the planning, those kinds of things are things that are important, and it's something that we can focus on today. So, so one of the questions that we sort of put down to sort of guide our conversation today, how do you think individuals look back and grade the last year? And then how is that different in a disciple making multiplication movement? And, you know, I'll send this your direction, because I think for me, I think that what happens a lot of times is I think people look back and grade the last year based on a lot of times how they feel.
Absolutely.
I feel like
Absolutely.
2022 was a good year. Hear people say that, and well, what about 2022 was a good year? Well, there wasn't a lot of disasters, there wasn't a lot of whatever, and so I think sometimes what we do is we, especially in a consumer oriented culture, a lot of times 2020 or the prior year is graded by how well how much we got what we wanted out of it, which is consumerism. I mean, that's a consumeristic orientation.
Sure.
How much of it, how much did I squeeze what I wanted out of 2022? That's like, it's really kind of an abstract scorecard, right? It's not, there's nothing really concrete. It's just like, did I squeeze all that I wanted? And you look back and you're like, yeah, I'm pretty happy about 2022. I felt like I squeezed out of it what I wanted. But I think that's a little bit different in a discipleship multiplication movement. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And well, let me just say this. I'd love to hear, or see comments from people and kind of get their input and get their thoughts on this. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, just give us those comments, and we'd love to kind of engage with that today. I think a lot of what you said there, I'm gonna try to weave this together, but like the difference between being in a discipleship making movement, being a disciple, all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of times the evaluation is based on feeling, right?
Yeah.
How do we feel about it? Does it, were there things that we receive, like you said, the consumer part of that we received that was beneficial to us or whatever? I think the other part of that too is a lot of it is built around doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Right. What did we do? Did we do this? Did we accomplish this?
That's good.
Whatever. And one of the shifts that we've made here at FAC, and this is kind of one of my wheelhouses in the corporate world. We did this a lot. We would do gap analysis and projecting in the future and all that kind of stuff, and would help kind of coach and do this kind of stuff. So this is one of my wheelhouses right here. I love this kind of stuff. And so one of the shifts that we've made is, instead of looking at what we're doing and what we've done in the last year, what we've really focused on is the being component. And the way that we've done that is evaluate based on our values.
So good, man.
Right. So let's talk organizationally. As an organization, it's interesting because I get asked a lot about, what's your guys' mission statement? What's your vision statement? And, you get these really complex vision and mission statements that nobody really knows what they are. They don't know, nobody can really kind of articulate those and whatever. But what we've really focused on is, let's really hone in on what are the values that drive us as a church.
Right.
And then, are we not just doing those things, but have those things become who we are? And we say we value. So for example, we say we value loving people. Well, in what ways is that being demonstrated? What ways is that being evidenced in our culture as a church? Personally, in my own life, right? If our top two values are the great commandment, love God and love people. Are we doing that? Are we, in every decision is his kingdom and his will and his plan first and foremost in everything that we do? Are we trying to put that at the forefront of everything? And so I think a shift away from, and obviously we're going to do, but is that doing birthed out of who we are? Not just a need for affirmation or a need for accomplishment or feel like that we're competing against something, whatever. If what we do can be birthed out of who we are, now all of a sudden it purifies motives. It allows us to really do, from this place of purity. And so I think that's a huge shift, Ken, away from the consumeristic, away from the feeling-based stuff, and away from things that cannot bring fulfillment and affirmation. We can become very focused on goal-driven, goal-oriented. Let's get this done. Let's do this, and not have the purity of heart that is necessary, particularly in the kingdom, the purity of heart to do those things birthed out of us. And what can happen is that then living out this life can become very institutionalized. It can become very mechanical. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it's not birthed out of who we are and our values, then it becomes we're doing this because this is what we need to do to feel better about ourselves or to accomplish great things. And I'm not against accomplishing stuff, but what's driving that? What's birthing that?
Exactly. And I think, so let's split it up today as we talk about this, because I think that sometimes it's difficult where you have an individual side and you have a corporate side. So when we talk about a disciple making movement, we're talking about what is the effect on the individual and what is the effect on what we do on a corporate level. And and it's funny because I think there is often a big disconnect in those two. And
sure,
absolutely.
And
I think, so I think that a lot of times churches begin to they look at the next year and they start doing calendar stuff. And we were guilty of this. We were guilty of sitting down and we would do we would just let the departments come in and they would have all of their events. And our annual planning session was basically everybody sitting down saying, here's what we've got for the events. Is this on top of anything else? Here's what here's what we want to do. And here are the events. And, and there probably wasn't a whole lot of thought. Well, I don't say probably. There wasn't a lot of thought that went into, the children's ministry had the events that they're going to do for the year. And the students had the events they were going to do for the year. And they're like, well, midwinter youth retreats here and camps are here and da-da-da-da-da. So it's funny because, in some, there is a way you do have to deconflict the calendar, right? I get that. But the problem is for us on a corporate level, a lot of what we were doing was these are the things that churches do. These are the things that our departments do, and we let them think about it and plan it. And, there weren't like a whole lot of guiding values and vision. It was just, do that and leverage it and let's grow. And it's interesting to me because I think there's a second phase of that we went through. The second phase was we started changing our values.
Yeah.
But we started saying, okay, how are we going to plan so that what we do is creating what we want? And even that's backwards.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Planning your calendar saying, hopefully this will produce or result in what we want. And at the end of the day, this is why we've settled in, Chris. This is why we've settled in that disciple making, being disciples, so our process is very simple. Okay. Our process is be the disciple, make disciple, multiply disciples.
That's it.
It's make and multiply. I mean, that is the plan. And so what we say being disciples is our culture.
Yeah.
Making disciples is our mission, and multiplying disciples is our strategy.
I love that.
And so
absolutely.
But Chris, it's interesting though, that as I look at the sort of the evolution of our processes, it shows that at first I was still, even though we were involved in all of this, I was still viewing things from an institutional, like the institution catalyzing things. We're going to plan these things and then it's going to produce this stuff. And Jesus basically said, no, actually what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to figure out, what is at the root? Is there a seed in it? And what does it produce and how does it, right? So fruit. So here's the thing. A tree produces a particular kind of fruit, and the fruit that it produces has seed in it, and the seed is the product of, or the capability of multiplication.
Yeah.
It doesn't start with how do we produce an orange?
Yeah.
How do we produce an apple? No, it's how do we become an orange tree? How do we become an apple tree? Right. Does that resonate with you?
100%. Absolutely. And I love the practical illustration you use there with like the calendar, right? Because that's a lot of what we do. Like, hey, we've got these events, we got to have coordination, and you've got to have coordination. And so, in that process, so kind of like a practical example, how it affected us. Mm-hmm. Well, instead of saying, saying, let these events produce this in us or whatever. What we did is we said, do these events fulfill what we say we value?
Mm.
And in what way do these events fulfill what we say we value? Right?
So good, bro.
So we did, this was several years ago, but we sat down and did a long, hard look and said, okay, and it's funny because we live in a convenience minded world, and yet everybody is so stinking busy. Everybody's lives are just so stinking busy. And so an easy reflex is, well, we need to just deconstruct the calendar. We just need to get rid of all this stuff and whatever. And there's certainly some element of that. But I love what you said. The better process is, are there things that we can do that will that facilitate the vision of who we're called to be? If it doesn't, then guess what? It needs to be on the chopping block, because why are we doing this? If it doesn't fall in line with our values, it needs to be on the chopping block. Right?
So good, dude.
But I'm also not going to swing on the
pendulum. But that's hard, though. That's hard.
It is. Oh man, it's so hard. But I'm not,
because you'll become the bad guy.
Right. Oh, absolutely. But I don't want to swing on the pendulum on the other end and be like, well, we don't want to do anything because people are so busy. So that needs to be another conversation and discussion about, well, if this is a part of our values, and this is, we say this is who we are, and this is an expression of who we are, then it ought to be something that we give our energy towards, we give our effort towards, and whatever. And so I think,
Bro,
like you said, our planning sessions have transitioned away from, we almost don't do hardly any conversation about calendar stuff. Our whole conversation is, these are the values. How have we functioned this last year, personally, collectively? Have we promoted a culture within the church? Are we seeing the fruit of that? Are we seeing this start to bubble up and happen within the body of Christ? If not, then why? Let's talk about it. Then that, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but then that plays into looking forward into the future.
Yeah.
What are the things that we need to do so that these things naturally begin to produce?
Whew. Man, that's so what's crazy is, as I think about some of this, and this leads into, again, like, not getting ahead of ourselves, because I'm almost even going to get ahead of looking into 2023 and planning. And how do you do that? And how do you, So a couple of things. Number one is, as we started today, we talked about how hard it is sometimes to create a metric.
Yes.
To determine whether or not 2022 is successful. And in our individual lives, like, did I squeeze everything out of 2022 that I wanted? And that's a very abstract, it's kind of an obscure scorecard.
Absolutely.
And then, so again, being is an abstract concept.
Sure.
And
absolutely it is.
Right. And so like, with going back to an orange grove or whatever, I never really learned growing up. I never really learned, I went through some of the stuff, but I didn't, I only enough to pass the earth science test on like, what can you identify the tree by the bark? Can you identify the tree by the leaf structure, and so on and so forth? I don't know the main ones, right? I can identify a maple tree and an oak tree and so on and so forth. But you start getting into like a Siberian elm and those kinds of things, and I'm like,
you love Siberia.
I know. Isn't that crazy? And I think, well, we got one in our yard, so I don't know. But the nutty thing about it is that, but the easy way to identify it is, because there are identifiers, right? The leaf structure, the height, the size, the bark. What does the bark look like? And there's some trees that have extremely, like sycamore trees and elms and so on. Some have a unique bark, and it's very unique against sort of like, we saw the sequoias and the redwoods when we were in California, right? And their bark is a very different kind of bark, and so it's easy to identify size and different things. But Jesus said, "By their fruit you'll know them."
Sure.
And so the thing about it is it's sometimes hard, it's sometimes abstract to identify and have good, strong, solid metrics on, are you being the disciple? It's easy to look back and say, am I producing the fruit of that? Because the fruit tells on what it is. The fruit that, like I could tell you, like I may get, like I may say that's an apple tree, and some guy goes, what kind of apple tree? Is it a golden delicious? Is it a, is it a, Macintosh? Is it a, whatever?
Yeah.
I don't know. I could tell you when the apple forms.
Right.
And so I think the thing about it is in today's discussion, maybe, and you're good at this kind of thing. And so this is why I'm throwing this. I know it's a hard question, but I'm throwing it your way. How do we make incremental observations metrics to say, I am being the disciple? How do we have those metrics that are real and usable? And then also use the fruit and say, okay, well, there's the fruit that's being produced. And so we know what's at the core. How can that be something that's a part of a person and even the church corporately process that doesn't become goal orientation, it becomes fruit orientation? And can you nuance that a little?
Yeah. So just kind of, this is going to be a little, not necessarily philosophical, but just kind of a little higher level, but like two questions that I ask constantly. Let's talk individually first,
Okay.
right?
All right.
So individually, two questions I ask all the time. Is there any place in me that's not like Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, what do I need to change to become more like him? Right? So
the right values. So the right values create the right measurements.
Correct. Okay. So if Jesus is the standard, he's the only standard.
Right.
So if Jesus is the standard, I may be better than you, but you're not the standard.
Right.
I may be better than this person sitting next to me on the pew, but that's not the standard. Jesus is the only standard. So the only thing that matters is there a place in me that's not like Jesus right now? Have I lost my temper? Have I, had lustful thoughts? Have I, whatever the flaw might be, or do I have ambitions and drives that are birthed out of, someplace other than fulfillment that comes from Jesus? And if so, then I need to address those kinds of things. So any place in me that's not like Jesus. The second question that I ask constantly is, what does healthy look like? And are there places in me that may be functional but not healthy? You can be functional and not be healthy. So what does healthy look like? So then you take those questions and you start applying them to the practical areas of your life. Am I the husband that Jesus wants me to be? Am I the father that Jesus wants me to be? Am I the worker that Jesus wants me to be? Am I the friend that Jesus wants me to be? Am I healthy in my relationships? Am I creating codependency? Like all of those kinds of things.
Can I pause you just real quick?
Do it. Sure.
Okay. So I want to hit on that because I think that's so important. Okay. Those key things. Cause I gotta eat it in little bites. So let me ask you this. Okay.
Yeah.
On the same topic, stay there. Okay. I want to stay there. Am I the husband? Am I the father? Am I the in my life? Is Christ likeness evident in the way I am in those places? Is it, and I'm trying to think how to ask this. Do you think that sometimes this is why we want to be judged by our giftings or our talents or whatever, because those are things that are maybe easier to produce or
absolutely.
I mean, what do you, I mean, how
absolutely.
is that?
Absolutely.
Because that's not healthy, right? It's not healthy if a person says, I just want people to know me by the things I do well and I'm gifted. But like what you seem to be saying here is that it's easy for people to say, I want to get my identity from the things that I've got gifting and talent for and whatever, what is so dangerous sometimes and so insidious about the institutional church. Because if you have an attractional model church, those are the things that make the machine look and do better. And so we plug people in because they got great gifting and great talent and all of these things. And you may have a person that in an institutional context looks extremely valuable, but on these other places that you're talking about, look really, really stinky.
Okay, can we bring some tension?
I want to. That's why I wanted to stop right there, because I feel like this is something that, I mean, we could really pull the cord tight between a disciple making movement and an institutional corporate attractional church.
Bring some tension. So Michael Jordan's the GOAT. That's not tension. That's fact.
It's reality.
That's reality. That's fact. But here's what you see. A lot of times, high achievers, high performers are extremely successful in one area, but completely dysfunctional in most other areas.
So true.
Right?
But they put that one good area up on the pedestal.
And so that becomes the elevated thing. And that's our culture. That's the culture that we live in. We elevate that to such a height and whatever. And it's, winning trophies, winning championships, building churches. Okay. This is where I want to create a little tension. The reality is we have a lot of people that have done ministry, and the sacrifice has been the people in their lives that they've left on the altar.
Bro.
Right? And so you have somebody who's extremely successful, but their family's totally dysfunctional. Their marriage is dysfunctional. Their home is dysfunctional. And so the question becomes, what glory does God get out of the fact that you were highly successful in one area, but completely dysfunctional in another area? Bro. It's almost like I mentioned earlier about, you can be functional, but not healthy. It's almost like an alcoholic, right? He's a functioning alcoholic, meaning, he can hold a job, but he's gonna get drunk.
And if you only know him if you only know him like unidimensional, if you don't know that person omnidimensional, if you just know them unidimensional, that one dimension of their life, you may actually think they're amazing.
They're amazing. They're awesome.
Make the assumption that they're an awesome husband, an awesome father, and all those different things, right?
So I don't want to be a functioning apostolic,
but there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them where we can function in one area but have all this dysfunction. That's why those questions, Ken, are so vitally important. Is like, what is a place in me that's not like Jesus? If I'm not loving my wife the way that Jesus called me to love, it doesn't matter what kind of preacher I am.
I know, but you preached that sermon, but the church said that was the best sermon you've ever preached last Sunday.
Right.
And that doesn't mean but you sucked at being a husband last week. But the only thing the church knows is that's the best sermon you've ever preached. And dude, I'm going to tell you something crazy.
Absolutely,
you ready for this?
Absolutely, man.
Family systems theory. Okay. Dr. Murray Bowen was sort of the first therapist, first psychiatrist that bucked up against sort of some Freudian views of what creates dysfunction and, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a reason why a lot of some of the family systems theory stuff is sort of foundational in biblical counseling, Christian counseling. And what's interesting is in family systems theory, basically what the idea is that you have various systems that you operate in life.
Yeah.
And you may be extremely successful at your job. You may be extremely successful, like maybe in the military. You may be extremely successful in these other areas, but you're not successful at all in the home. And what happens is that person begins to blame the others. Well, I'm so successful in this area and I'm so successful. You must be the problem. And so what happens is sometimes the dysfunction that happens in the home, if, like, let's say, for example, you preached the best sermon you've ever preached in your life on Sunday, but you absolutely sucked at being a dad and a father the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But everybody's cheering and hurrahing you and be like, oh, that was the best sermon you ever preached. That was so amazing. And you get your identity out of that because in your heart that you're stinking it up as a husband and father. And what happens is it's so dangerous because all of a sudden you could begin to say, well, all those people see how awesome I am. What's wrong with my family? What's wrong with instead of owning your lack of disciplability and Christ-likeness.
And it all comes back down to the values, right? What do we value the most? And so if I value being the disciple the most, being like Jesus, then that's going to bleed into every area of my life. And again, you know, it's easy to judge, and there are certain principles I think that are important that we maintain these principles, but that practical application can be different for everybody. I've told people this all the time. Yes, I'm a busy person. That's my nature. Like, that's just the way, that's just in us, to not busy for busyness sakes. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with being busy. I'm busy. And here's the deal. This is what you've got to find is, what does healthy look like for you? Now, there's certain things that I have to be committed to. And so, like, in our marriage, in our home, a family night, family time with my wife, making time to go on walks, all of that kind of stuff is critically important. Having people around you that can help you to identify places. This is why we need people to help us in our personal discipleship. We can't do it all on our own, because you often say we can't see the forest because of the trees. We're in the middle of it. We can't see our own places of dysfunction. But I think we need to be cautious of judging somebody else's health, what healthy might look like for them, right?
Yeah.
So for example, I've got some buddies that some people back in Illinois, and they do Ironman stuff, right? To them, that's what healthy looks like. They're runners. They run. For them, they'll run 10, 12, 15 miles a week or a day. And that's not me. That's not what I'm going to do. Right.
Right.
So for them,
I got a guy, by the way, I got a guy that I golf with right now that up until his early to mid 60s was running, 5, 10, 15 miles a day. Some days getting ready for marathons, he'd run 20 miles a day.
Right.
And the doctor basically said he's needing hip replacement, knee replacement, whatever. But there's that chemical, that dopamine and whatever, that the body sends as a result of that. And so you may think, well, I'm so much healthier than everybody because I'm doing some of this stuff. But the reality is it's going to take a toll on you eventually. So it's funny, isn't it?
It is. And that's why the question, I think those questions are so critical. What's in me that's not like Jesus, and what does healthy look like for me? Right?
Jeez,
what does healthy look like for me? And then being intentional, right? Because those are kind of conceptual things.
Yeah. Well, and if somebody doesn't have a healthy, so here's why you got to have a disciple maker in your life. Because when you say what's healthy look like for me, you may say, getting what I want, nobody opposing me, I feel good, I think life is just flowing smooth. And you need a disciple maker in your life to look at you and say, hey, bro, just going to be honest with you, man. Some of these key things that you think you're doing good in, you're apparently not measuring them against Christ's nature.
Yeah. You've got to have real self-awareness to be a disciple. This is bro, this is discipleship right here. Right.
Yeah.
And this flows beautifully and perfectly with what we talk about is in discipleship. The person has to become self-aware. And sometimes you need that outside voice to be able to help you in that and to help you to identify those places. And then the other thing that I think is we can't live in the conceptual piece or the philosophical phase. So then you got to take those things and say, okay, how do I begin to practically apply these into my life? Right. So how do I apply balance and health into my marriage, into my family? Years ago, this was before we even started the discipleship thing. My wife and I sat down, I've talked about in our marriage, we sat down and establish some guidelines for our marriage. This is how we're going to argue. This is how we're going to, resolve conflict and whatever. With our children, we sat down and we said we had the 10 Dillingham house rules. These are what we're going to do. We're going to love each other. We're going to serve each other and just go on down. And so then we would hold people accountable. Hey, number 5, don't forget about number 5. Right. And so being intentional, this is one of the things, Ken, that I think can be so helpful. Is that people maybe become aware of them, but they don't become intentional about applying the things that need to be changed in those areas. So we can identify, well, I'm not the husband that I need to be. Okay, so what are the steps that you're going to take that you're going to become the husband that God wants you to be? Or
or the
a
husband
father.
Jesus would be if he were you.
Right. So I
You
think
know?
right. I think sometimes where we get hung up is, again, the philosophical piece, conceptual piece, but then you've got to take that and begin to apply those things in the practical realm so that you're not just, and this is the danger of the new year, right?
Mhm.
Man, you do the evaluation of last year, like, oh golly, man, I should have spent more time with my family, or I should have done this, whatever. And then you get in the new year and it's like you get that gym membership and you go to the gym for the first few weeks in January where it's all packed out. What's the gym look like in March? What's the gym look like in
Mhm.
April? All
Mhm.
those newbies cleared out, right? Because they did it the first couple of months, but they didn't have the commitment to it. So we've got to have that plan. And again, you got to have somebody in your life that can hold you accountable to that.
And the people that are going to be there in May and June and whatever, the people who are that,
Yeah,
not people who have planned it and do it. Okay, so let's look at let's rapid fire. You know, I think we've done a really good job of laying the foundation. I think we could rapid fire some of these questions. And I think I think in many ways we spend so much time working on the doing piece, right?
absolutely.
Like doing better, doing the things. I want to do the things that we feel we didn't do well in the last year, and I think we
And
focus. And so,
can I just mention something? I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but
no,
I think, bro, that piece is so critical because of
mhm,
tying that to what you said about producing the fruit.
yeah,
We focus on the doing, thinking that's going to produce the fruit. But if we can focus on the being,
there you
you
go.
will naturally do, and it'll naturally produce the fruit
That's
in you if you
That's
be.
exactly that's exactly where I was going with that because you're exactly right because I think what we try to do sometimes is when we do whether it's personal or corporate, whether okay, I mean, so we can blend this back together here on a personal level. We think about what do I need to do in 2023 that I didn't do well in 2022, but Jesus kind of says, no, you produced what you are.
Hmm.
You produced what you are. And so I think it's interesting because what we try to do is we say, okay, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do different things or whatever. And so we plan like next year, I'm going to do this better than I did it last year. And basically, Jesus says, well, no, really, what you're going to do is you're going to do what you are every year.
Sure,
And so I think it's interesting,
absolutely.
right? I think that kind of misses the target in planning and strategic planning
That's a
and
powerful statement, bro. You're going to do what you are every year.
yeah.
You're going to do what you are every year.
Mhm.
Think about that for a minute.
I don't care how you plan.
You are going to do what you are every year. Man, I'm going to steal that bad boy.
And don't get mad and don't get mad in October when you're in the you're going into the last quarter of the year and you're like, dog stinking gone it. Here I am producing apples again. And I made up in my mind I was going to
So
produce
good.
pears in 2023. And then you get frustrated and you're like, well, this cataclysmic cycle of just this unending cycle. And it's so beautiful. I think this is why Jesus says to Nicodemus, you're doing a lot of great things, but you got to become something new in John 3.
Right.
And so I think it, that kind of misses the target. So, I think how do individuals and leaders strategically plan for being and still plan or schedule in a way that's faithful. And this is interesting because Jesus said, take no thought for tomorrow, tomorrow take care of itself, and I think in some ways, I think what we got to do is it's almost like Jesus is saying, look, you focus on being like me today
Yeah,
and you'll do what you want to do tomorrow.
absolutely.
You
We
know, like
became we became so consumed with casting vision,
mhm,
and I'm not against casting vision, but as we've said all along,
mm,
culture eats programs for lunch.
100%.
Culture eats vision for lunch. You can cast vision all day long, but
Absolutely.
if that's not who you are, if it doesn't emanate from you, if it doesn't emanate from your
So
being
good,
and from
Chris.
then it's not going to be you. And I love what Jay Jones said, John 15:5, right? Jesus is the vine,
That's
we're the
it.
branches.
Bottom line.
If we're in him, we're going to produce fruit. Without him, we can do nothing.
Go, Jay.
That's the bottom line of what we're saying in all of this. So we're not saying don't have a vision, don't have a plan of where you're going, whatever. But that plan should be birthed out of who we are.
So listen to this, Chris. So when you were talking earlier, I thought about this on a corporate level.
Yeah.
When I talked about that when we started going through this change, at first we were doing things, planning things, and it wasn't even, we were just hoping to grow.
Yeah.
And then what I started doing was I started casting some vision, and I started saying, this year we're going to plan around these key markers and values and metrics. But the crazy thing about it is as we were talking today, the thought hit me. We haven't really reached full, complete transformation saturation until they're just simply bringing, what we need to do is, so just like we said at first, they were bringing their dates and we were deconflicting the calendar. It hasn't truly transformed until out of their own personal discipleship transformation as leaders, they're bringing their strategies out of who they are. Because they were bringing their dates out of who they are. And we were conflicting that on a corporate level, institutional level. That my question is, okay, in the middle, sandwiched in between, is this period of time where I was trying to artificially steer things. And I think you do sometimes, like you do have to do it. It's like a cast.
Sure.
You do have to artificially create some things and say, nope, this year we're going to plan this way because this is what we value. And it's herky jerky and people feel like, whatever.
Yeah.
The question is when are we going to get to the place when people just simply, it's who we are. And so this is what we do. We don't even have to really think about it much.
Absolutely. Well, that's why Pastor Tony Richard made a statement, and is back a little bit, but he made the statement about, churches would do themes, right? We're going to do an annual theme. This is going to be our theme. And my experience has been a couple things. Most of the times that theme wears off within a couple of months.
Doesn't it though?
Nobody remembers what the theme is by the end of the year. And I think a lot of what those themes are based at, they're produced kind of out of that place where you're like, we didn't really do this last time, so we need to start really focus on this. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but does that theme produce anything, or does it? And no, it doesn't. It may be something God is calling you to focus on for that season until that's over, and then what's the next place that the body is not like what Jesus wants it to be. So now I need you to focus on this, and so just keep running through that. But I think
so funny.
I think that's
so
where
good.
I think that's where we get in that institutional model, and we do bring in. Okay, so all right. So certainly it's
artificial, right?
It is. What I was going to say was, like, there's some business components to the operation of the church, right? In our current context, right. But I think a lot of times what this is we've become, and I'm not against it, but we've become impacted and affected a little bit by corporate strategy and
marketing, branding,
all of those kinds of things. And we feel like we've got to do this, and we've missed. The truth is, the successful businesses are produced out of culture. It's the bottom line. Bro. But we try to bring in those strategies and implement those into the church, into the body of Christ, and it's a different. The body of Christ is an organism, not an organization.
Bro,
and that's the difference.
You know what's interesting? If you think about marketing and branding for upstarts, they tend to try to project what they do well. Like they project, like, we're the best at this, we're the best. And they project what we do. This is what we do. Because people don't know what they do. But Chris, you look at you, and I don't want to get too sidetracked on this, because I do want to just kind of rapid fire some of these questions at you real quick here before we're done. But it's interesting because some of these places, like, I don't hear anymore, like Walmart doesn't, like, they don't market and brand like so that you'll know who we are. They're like, people know who we are. We're just going to simply say, come here, you know who we are. And isn't it interesting? companies that have become what they want to be
Sure.
don't try to promote themselves to people as this is what we are.
Yeah.
And yet what's funny is, isn't it interesting that churches who use themed base, next year it's going to be, focusing on this and what, whatever, and all these things. Isn't it interesting that churches in many ways spend a lot of their time, effort, and energy talking about what they are instead of simply saying, you know what we are.
Right.
Isn't that wild?
Bro, and that absolutely it goes back to those values again. I think if we focus on the values, if you look at the companies today that are kind of emerging, what's a common theme? They all have a mission, right? Like they have like socks, right? The company with the socks will give away a pair of socks, will give away a pair of shoes to the poor, will give money to, whatever. And it's so there's kind of like that mission component behind it. I think that's something that's happening in our world today. And so that's birthed out of a value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so what
right,
we
exactly.
do is birthed out of who we are, birthed out of our value. So it all goes back to that again of instead of focusing on, well, we were deficient in this area, so we need to supplement this in 2023. What if we looked at it and we just said, these are our values, and every year until Jesus comes, our only responsibility is, are we faithful and committed to these values, and are they being produced in us? And if we'll stay committed to these values, then guess what will happen? The fruit will naturally begin to produce.
That's it. Yeah,
right? It'll naturally begin to produce in you.
Sherry Goodermott says once a year feeding the homeless is not doing the mission. No, usually what it is it's giving people an opportunity to feel better about doing what they aren't really doing.
So individually, Ken, people need to start doing this. What's of value to you? What's most important to you? And obviously your relationship to the church family, to the body of Christ, is an important piece of that, an important part of that. But what's something in you that you're passionate about? Right?
Yeah.
You may have something, a mission that is something that's really important to you. What is God calling you and your family to do?
Okay, so here's what's interesting about what you're saying. Here's where I think the corporate church is supposed to do its best work.
Yeah.
I think the corporate church is supposed to do its best work when it is promoting what the kingdom values are.
Yeah.
So people can become transformed according to those kingdom values. And then the uniqueness of God's, I'm not talking about talent, but I'm talking about the uniqueness of the way God's put his fingerprint on you, the way he's gifted you, and what it is, however it is that God's sort of calling you to advance the kingdom.
Yeah.
And then you begin to see, let's say, for example, a church of 300, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what? We've got this 30 or 40 people over here that really seem to have a passion for this thing, whatever it is. And I think part of what the church should do well is what people are doing because of who they are.
Yeah.
We come in and we say, okay, now let us put the corporate muscle and leverage to this so that you can maximize that. You're doing it individually. You 30 people are doing this individually. Let's somehow create some kind of cohesion and plan and put all that together, because it's now the fruit of who people are.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna rapid fire you real quick. Okay. So question: how do you think churches and departmental leaders look back and grade their successes?
So what's important to Jesus?
Okay. And so is that, do you think that's different in the disciple making multiplication movement?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if what's important to Jesus is not important to us, then we'll have other metrics like church attendance.
Yeah.
Will be the main metric that we use. Like, how many people do we have coming to Sunday?
There you go.
Versus how many people are we impacting? How many people are we connected to? How many relationships are being built?
Chris, that's why church growth is so insidious, bro. Because
because
you can be getting bigger. So, okay, yeah, awesome. Okay, number 3. Well, so we dealt with the first question was, how do individuals look back and grade the last year? We talked about that. Number 3 is, so that last answer was number 2. Number 3, what would you tell an individual that's looking ahead, wanting to make some real changes in 2023?
So what I would say is the first and most important thing is 2 components. Number 1, you need to get alone with Jesus and let God give you some clarity and let God begin to speak to you. This should be not something specifically for the new year. This should be something that we do consistently. Make it a part of your regular life, but specifically as you're going in, like, what are the things that I've been doing this for about 3-4 weeks already, of just like, God, I feel like the Lord is really dealing with me about some places in my life. So I need to do that. And that's number 1. Number 2, I need to have some people in my life that I'm accountable to. And I need to have some people that have permission to challenge me in some places that I need to continue to grow.
Do you have are you in a discipling relationship? And sometimes discipling relationships can be peer, I'll disciple you in ways that you'll disciple me in ways that, we individually need. Okay. Number 4, what kind of differences exist in looking forward and doing strategic planning are there in disciple making multiplication movements versus a more institutionally oriented church? In other words, what kind of differences, as if you're in a disciple making movement looking forward, how does planning and strategic planning for the new year look different than an institutionally oriented church?
So I think you addressed a big part of it. If it all goes back to, what is your scorecard? What is your metric? This is why you need to let Jesus change what you care about, because if it's the metric, then you'll do everything towards events so that numbers look better and make you feel better. If you're a disciple making movement, then your metric is, are people living mobilized? Are they living on mission? And are they multiplying? If they're not living, we can celebrate. We may not be experiencing multiplication, but if we have people that are living mobilized, here's what I know. At some point, we can help foster and facilitate living on mission. And if they're living on mission, we can help then foster and facilitate multiplication. That's going to lead to that. So it's going to look at, instead of looking, how do I create things that make us feel better as far as numeric, growth and that kind of stuff. If we can, we'll put our energy and efforts towards mobilization, missional living, and multiplication.
So what would you tell the pastor or leader who wants to see substantive change and missional success? I'm sure some of that relates, what you just said relates into that. I'll just jump on this one real quick and just say, I think what I would tell that pastor is to say, be honest. The fruit that people are bearing in their life, the real fruit that they're bearing in their life, is who they are.
Absolutely.
And don't give people a pass who are needed because they're gifted and talented, but who they are is producing a different kind of fruit in their private life.
Absolutely. I would say sit down and clarify, if you've not already done this, 100% specifically clarify your values. Sit down and make them abundantly clear and say, I am not budging off of these values, right? So one of our values here is continuous improvement and excellence, not because we just want to do better, but it's continuous improvement and excellence because we believe that He is an excellent God. And we want to be a representation that everything we do is with excellence. That doesn't mean that we put on a bigger show. It just means whatever we do, we're going to do it with everything, right? We're going to do it. And our phrase is, as unto the Lord. I'm not doing it for somebody else. I'm doing it unto Him. And because He's the King of Kings, I'm going to do it unto Him. That is a value of us so if the leader doesn't know what the values are, then you can't expect people that are leaders within the church or people that are, within the church family are going to know what those values are. So you need to clarify those.
So if you have somebody who's extremely good at something and they're leading a department and they want to do things with excellence, but you as a leader are recognizing that they're actually wanting to do things with excellence because because that's their candy stick, that's their thing, and because it causes them to get notoriety, then you need to go to that person, sit down with that person and say, look, I do believe that we need to do what we do with excellence. But here's the deal. If you're the one that ends up getting the glory out of it, then we're not doing it for Jesus. We're doing it because we want to be excellent, not because we're serving an excellent God.
As unto the Lord.
Okay. So
that's what it has to be.
So number 6, what is the difference? Now, this is, I don't know how you're going to answer this one fast, but what is the difference in ministry development in a disciple-making movement versus an institutionally oriented church? How would you? So in an institutionally oriented church, you create leaders who are gifted and talented, and they got the abilities and whatever. And so in institutionally oriented churches, you hear people say, "I feel called to preach."
Right.
In a disciple-making movement, you see people who say, I feel called to glorify Jesus and advance the kingdom, and you leverage those people to
whatever
being
that's
what they
expressed, need. Right? I 100%
totally
nailed that.
Do you believe that in an institutionally focused church that you can train and develop people and focus on I mean, I believe that we're going to focus on character. Obviously, I think any church that's has a desire or hunger to be authentic, even if they're institutionally focused. I think the pitfall may be that they train how to do it. Like most of what I've seen in ministry training stuff, and I don't mean this to be, but man, even some like organizational, institutional online training programs for ministry for licensure almost completely focuses on how to do.
Sure.
And I think if you're focusing on how to preach a sermon, or you're calling people to, you're training leaders how to serve in an organizational capacity, you're starting with the wrong thing. You're teaching them how to do. I think, man, we need to focus on being. We need to focus them on, man, this is so. I don't know. In fact, I've got a new group of guys that I'm working on in 2023. And I told them, I said, okay, first of all, there is no such thing as a call to preach.
Right.
God may use you in that capacity, but what you're feeling a calling to is to lead the advancement of the kingdom, lead others, to develop others, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers for the perfecting of the saints, full maturing. So I don't know what this is going to look like for you. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to be what you need to be. You're going to start bearing some fruit. Jesus said, by their fruit, you'll know them. This is obviously how Jesus is using you. And then we're going to figure out a way to leverage you so that others can be blessed and benefited by how Jesus is using you. And I don't know, that's our system.
Bro, I mean, that's it right there. How much better would we be as a church? And it's unfortunate that that's even a conversation, but that right there is the bottom line. If you'll just focus on that relationship and being the disciple of Jesus, the expression of ministry will naturally, right? I mean, we love to talk about giftings. We love to talk about, the fivefold ministry, the giftings within the body of Christ. Well, who does that? Jesus does that. He's the one that makes that visible and apparent, that people know, right? How did they pick out the deacons in the book of Acts? Men that are faithful, men of good report, men that are full of the Holy Ghost. Yeah. They picked out people that were disciples. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't pick out and say, well, this dude can really serve a table. Bro, right. Like he's the best table server you've ever seen in your life. No.
Or they didn't pick out somebody and say, man, this dude, I'm telling you right now, if there's anybody who in 20 years is going to be preaching general conference, it's this dude. So let's get him in our deaconing program right now.
No, just get the most disciplable people, let them serve, and watch them begin to change the world. It'll come out of them, naturally come out of them. Stephen, right? I mean, it naturally just came out of him in the crucial moments.
So good,
man. It's good stuff. We went long today,
but we packed in so much.
I'm actually going to send this to our team and say, hey, I'm going to ask you to listen to this before.
Exactly. My same thought, exact thought. Yep.
Yeah. We delayed our planning because of some of the remodel stuff going on. So we got it coming up. So I'm going to ask them to listen to this before we come together. Cause I mean, I believe it so much. How much farther along will we be as a church, as a movement, as a body, if we would just focus on these key components and just let God change us and be committed to the, bro. I just, again, that I'm rethinking this through of like, man, the values, being committed to those values are the critical piece, not trying to chase some elusive golden carrot, and trying to catch that, but just stay committed to the values. And I trust and believe if we'll stay committed to the values, it'll produce the fruit. That's the bottom line.
I don't care how much you plan for 2023. You are going to produce the fruit of who you are.
So good, man. That's the quote of the day. It's the quote of the day. Well, we had a ton of great comments. I was wanting to try to get through some of the comments and address some of them, but we weren't able to do that. But I do appreciate that. Again, Jude, we just want to say, Ken, big, huge thank you to everybody that's been a part of the Mobilized Church Network, the Mobilized Church podcast. We're so thankful for the amazing people God has connected us with in 2022. It's been a growing season for the Mobilized Church Network, and we're just going to continue to be who God called us to be. And we're living this out in our network, right?
So true.
We're not going to violate the values.
So true.
So thank you to everybody. Appreciate you being a part of the conversation today. We look forward to coming back to you next Tuesday in 2023 for a rocking New Year podcast. We're going to come back better, bigger, better, badder than ever before, right?
Something like that. For this. They ain't ready for this.
You ain't ready for this. Thanks for being a part today. Look forward to coming back to you next week. Until then, go live mobile.